So I'm Melissa Shea, co-founder of Fashion Mingle, and we are here today to talk with fashion designer Runa Ray. I have known Runa for, I don't know, I met Runa the very first time when she was showing at New York Fashion Week, and I had a media team and we were backstage doing interviews. And I believe Lori Rivera, who's often on our panel, she was one of your fashion show producers at one point. Yeah, and I just fell in love with your work because you put sustainability into everything, but you know, it's not just your average collection that you put out. Your creativity is just over and above a lot of what you see at Fashion Week. And so, you know, from a photographer standpoint or someone in the media, it's like your collections are like eye candy. And so I've just always enjoyed going to your shows and interviewing you because you're such a thoughtful person about what you do. So welcome, Runa. Thank you for taking the time to be on our mastermind today.
Thank you, Melissa, and everybody here. It's definitely an honor.
No, thank you so much. Well, Beth's going to go around and introduce the rest of our team today.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Beth Smith. I'm the co-founder of Fashion Mingle. Thank you for joining us and welcome, Runa. To let all attendees know, Runa has kindly offered a half-hour complimentary session for one person interested in getting to talk about their business on a one-on-one basis, whether it be sustainability from a design standpoint, how to use your sustainability goals to market your business in the right way. There's lots of things you can discuss and learn in just a mere half hour with Runa. So if you're interested in participating in that, just please put your name, business name, and email in the comments. And now we'll get on to interviewing the rest of our panelists. We'll start with Shirin Movahed. Hi, Shirin.
Hi, Beth. Hi, everyone. I'm Shirin Movahed. I am a fashion and branding attorney. I help businesses from startup to growth and everything in between, and assisting them with creating a solid foundation for a successful growth and expansion of their business. And top of mind these days is definitely the issue of sustainability and how we can incorporate that. So thank you, Runa, for coming here and sharing that with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. And we might mention Shirin is going to do a webinar next week on Friday on how to become a B Corporation and give you all the details on the legal side. We're going to hear from two businesses that have taken and gone down that path, taken the stance to go that direction. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation. So hope you'll join us then. Okay, well, Kat Schuller is next. Kat, you've already had a little intro, but if you want to go through and just give a little more background.
Just wanted to welcome everyone. Thank you, Runa, for being here. This is a near and dear topic to me. Happy World Environment Day, everyone. It's a very special and auspicious occasion to have Runa, someone like Runa who's designing with that sustainable development goals in mind. And she and I are working together on Making Waves, which is a big virtual experience event that was supposed to be live at the UN and is now pivoted to be virtual. So Making Waves is going to be at 6 to 8:30, and Runa is on the panel as well as showing her collection from New York Fashion Week. I'm so excited. I really want to emphasize today that we all make a pledge somehow to be more impactful and to inspire each other to do good. Planet, people, purpose. And the ocean is what we're going to concentrate on. Sustainable goal number 14 later.
That's great, Kat. Thanks for the reminder. Okay, now we have Dee Rivera. Hi, Dee. How are you today?
Hi, Beth. How are you? Thank you so much for having me. Hi, Runa. I remember I met you at the Fashion Mingle Fashion Week party, and I fell in love with your jacket, and I didn't know that you made it. But I'm excited to be here. I am the CEO of DCG Group Media here in New York City, and we produce events. We do currently now virtual events. We do PR, marketing, and we also help companies now pivot to doing commercials, which are 30-second commercials on live stream. We also do some other innovative way to kind of target your market to get your brand out there. So I'm very glad to be here.
That's great. Okay, finally we have Dale Noelle from True Model Management. Hi, Dale.
Hi, Beth. Thank you for having me today. I am Dale Noelle. I am the founder and CEO of True Model Management. We represent all types of models, sizes, shapes, ethnicities, you name it. We have been working remotely and virtually for models and in person soon. But thank you so much for being here and with us, Runa, and we're really looking forward to hearing all your ideas about sustainable development goals and how we can share them with the rest of the community. Fashion Mingle is a great platform for us to all meet together, share ideas, and we're really happy that you're with us today. Thanks so much.
Wonderful. So, well, thank you to everybody who's attending today. We love to have all of our regular attendees and also our new people joining us every week. Be sure to make comments or questions, in the chat, and we will definitely get to everybody's questions at the end. So first of all, I want to introduce everybody to some of Runa Ray's designs so you really understand where she's coming from as a designer. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. Hold on, that looks like I'm sharing my Facebook page. There we go. Okay.
Wow.
Beautiful. I love that.
Okay, is this not amazing or what? So, okay, so Runa, this was presented in Tokyo. Tell us about this collection right here, what you did here.
First of all, thank you all for having me on board Fashion Mingle. I've always loved Fashion Mingle, and I've loved you too, Melissa, since the time we probably met. And I remember this was in 2016 when I had my first collection at the New York Fashion Week, where I did like a zero stitch collection, which was to do with sustainability and no fabric wastage. To tell you about this collection that was showcased in Tokyo, it was basically on the reduce, reuse, and recycle, to do with the wastage that actually happens in a fashion brand and what happens behind the scenes. Because as consumers, you just get to see the product that is hanging on the rack, but you don't get to see the process that goes on behind it. I have worked in probably 4 corporates, and including a luxury house. So I've seen the different processes that actually take place and the amount of wastage that is kind of generated. So I decided to bring to the forefront the fabric wastage and create art forms and use fashion as a tool to get the message across, using reduce, reuse, and recycle, and trying to help people understand or even educate the consumer on the choices that they're making and how fashion could be detrimental, because it's only now that we have kind of gotten to know what fashion is doing to the environment. But this has been around since the Industrial Revolution and since the advent of the sewing machines and then the introduction of synthetics. So it's a process that has started off probably, maybe basically the first carbon footprint happened like 8,000 years ago, but then we didn't have so many people, but now fashion has come into it and it has kind of obviously spread the whole thing. So this was the concept of the Tokyo Fashion Week, basically to do with reduce, reuse, recycle, and the fashion waste.
Okay, and so one thing that you're all about is using fabrics and processes that biodegrade. So was that the message with adding the sprouts on the shoulders, is that this is all going to biodegrade into the earth?
Yeah, so another process that I employ in my design is I work keeping the end in mind. So when you need to keep the end in mind, what is going to happen to your garment when you're done with it? I decided to employ recycling techniques because I use a lot of natural garments, and that could be broken down and made into fodder for like plants. So you could actually break the garment down. You have like a burlap sack that is given to you, and you could, like say you've used it for 5 years, and instead of throwing it away and it getting compressed in a landfill, you can put it in the burlap and bury it in your garden. You have some seeds, it automatically degrades and creates fodder for the plants that you're going to grow. So it's like a mini couture garden that you're trying to create. So these are like the different innovative ways that you could probably employ recycling in your branding. Another thing that we do is like, which I've told you, is where we also convert natural fabrics into paper, because a lot of garment scraps, instead of again being thrown, and that's what natural paper is made of. It's beaten into a pulp, and then it's lifted by wats, which have like a perforation, turned around and pressed, and that's how you get paper. So it's basically completely wood-free and cellulosic.
Okay. Okay, so this is another dress from the Tokyo exhibition, and you've got a barcode on here, and I don't know if everybody can see it, but underneath the barcode it says FUCK, the environment. So tell us about, what this piece means and what it's constructed of.
Yeah, so this piece is again another sample, an industrial waste piece, which was created before the actual garment was made. And the barcode, if you get to scan it, it actually says FUCK, the environment.
Oh, does it really? That's
yeah,
great.
Yeah. It's the actual barcode of the words. The reason it was used is to show what consumerism is doing to our planet, and what you see is not what is behind the scenes, because like you said, not everyone can read what is underneath, but it's a barcode, but you probably wouldn't go deep enough to find out what it actually means. So,
So the message here is that because we're only looking at the surface and like the garments we have on, we're not thinking about the what goes into the construction. Mm-hmm. We're participating in the FUCK of the environment.
Yeah, and we're definitely blind. We're blind to everything that's happening. We only see what we choose to see. So
that's so powerful. So this is one of my personal favorites. I just love this dress. And so I know the fabric is made from, a very specific type of fabric, but then also the process of the natural dyes and creating the leaves. Tell us about this. This was at New York Fashion Week. Was this 2016? 2018. Okay.
Yeah. So this was when I tried to extract chlorophyll from plants. It started off with different kinds of experiments, basically DIY, and then I stumbled upon different ways you could probably get the actual color from the leaves and how you could press it onto garments. The beauty about this is that like chlorophyll, some of the leaves you thought would give you green, but they gave you blue. And some of the leaves that you thought would give you, like some of the petals you thought would give you blue would give you red. So it was really interesting. And over a period of time, you would actually see the garment start living because the chlorophyll would start changing. It would never fade, but it was a beautiful process to see it change color on the garment itself. So what you're seeing now at the Fashion Week was very, very different when I created it. But this is the impression that it has now. And I think the person who bought it is going to have a completely different version of the way the leaves look. So this process, there are 2-3 ways of doing it. You can do it like a DIY, where you can use vinegar as a mordant, or you can use nails, but something which is going to be more skin friendly. And it's a process which, if you want to get in touch with me, I can always explain this, where you can get the actual chlorophyll taken out. And this, mitigates the use of chemical dyes in fashion. It shows that fashion can also be beautiful. It does not have to be something which is like environmentally detrimental at the same time. You might have to work a little bit on this because it does take a little bit of effort, but it's definitely worth it in the long run.
Mm-hmm. And I think that this particular process is so wonderful for designers who have more custom clients where they create things for individual clients that are unique, and you know that's definitely the kind of designer that can easily incorporate a fully sustainable process into their design.
Definitely.
Okay, so this,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, this dress was, this was like the wow moment. You know, the photographers loved it. This is like probably one of the most unique things I've ever seen come down the runway at New York Fashion Week. And everybody just loved the, you know, imagination is the only weapon against reality. That was such a beautiful saying. And then you've also got, it looks like blood, the impression of blood. Can you just tell us about the whole concept around this dress?
So again, this dress is a muslin fit. So like we know, like most designers use a lot of muslin before they create the actual garment. And nobody talks about what happens to the muslin when it's, you know, like the muslin fits or the prototypes as we call it. So I decided to use a prototype and convert it into something that again had a meaning which could be taken out of the, you know, taken out for the public. So so what you see as blood that is kind of bleeding here is basically flowers that are bleeding, showing you what we're doing to the environment, because at the end of the day, the only thing we can do is probably just imagine, because the reality is not gonna be good enough, you know. So the imagination is the only thing that we can probably counteract reality with. So again, it's like food for thought for a person to kind of really sit down, reflect, understand, and see what they can probably do in terms of buying or even creating.
Yeah. Well, this was such a memorable fashion show because the collection was beautiful, but also the message behind it. So today we're going to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals by the UN, and I just want to get everybody familiar with this. Beth is going to put the link in the chat so that everybody can check it out. So I'll just read this real quick. In 2015, world leaders agreed to 17 global goals, officially known as Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. You hear that term a lot. The goals have the power to create a better world by 2030 by ending poverty, and this is ending poverty, fighting inequality, and addressing the urgency of climate change. And so what the UN wants everybody to do is they want every individual, but also governments and businesses, to work together to adopt the goals that you know, make sense for your business, and just everybody start moving forward together. So Runa, do you want to just go over like what are some of the goals that you particularly identify with?
Okay, so the goals that really interested me was the climate change, the climate action, and life below water and life on land, because this was something which resonated with what I was doing with design. But over time, I started realizing that the goals cannot be seen separately, and at some point they're always interlinked. Because there's certain situations like that personally happened to me when I was working. This was when I was working at a very large denim corporate. And when I went behind the scenes, I got to see the way the jeans were made. So basically what happens is that you have the corporate that gives the contract to an organization, hoping that the organization would give them back the product. What the organization does is they probably sublet it. Now, the way the jeans are made is they are hand scraped. So they're like, you enter the small little room, cramped. You probably have like 100 workers. You have boys from the age of 10 to like, you know, grown up men. And you have like the denim, which is like stretched on these balloons, and everyone's got this sandpaper, and they're like sanding the jeans. The whole room is filled with like dust from the jeans. It's impossible to breathe, impossible to even stay there like for 5 minutes, but this is the way the people work. Now, do we even know what is happening? So this is like the humanitarian approach to the SDGs, which, like I said, is interlinked. So once you take up an SDG and you start delving in deeper, you start realizing that everything is to do with transparency. And once you start identifying with a certain SDG, you know how you can probably move on and incorporate the other SDGs to do with, you know, the human side, the human aspect, gender equality, inequality, education, are the people working for you being treated right? Is the supply chain working right? So for me, everything is interconnected, saying which certain countries might have the SDGs, which you might have to skew according to the kind of way that you have it, you know, have your country working with. But I'm talking about countries like India might have a different approach. The countries in the UK might have a different approach. So you need to really identify where your carbon footprint is and then work on that.
And choose from that way. Yeah. And so what's really great about the goals is, I mean, there's truly something for everybody. You know, there's reducing inequalities, there's sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption, even good health and well-being, no poverty, zero hunger, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, quality education, affordable and clean energy. I mean, there really is, everybody in the world can make a difference. And I think that it does help to go to the Global Goals website and really read through and see which one resonates for you. I know for us, I always felt like number 8 was really important because of what Fashion Mingle is doing, and that's decent work and economic growth. And you know, how one of the reasons why we were inspired to you know, start the Fashion Mingle was because so many people out in you know, all over the world are trying to just have a business to take care of themselves and their family, instead of, you know, some fashion designers think of, you know, having a worldwide brand, but in reality, most people in the fashion industry are just trying to have a business that takes care of themselves and their family. And that's what we wanted to support, because that's the way that everybody in the industry can be lifted no matter where they live, but also you don't have, you know, that's also keeping everything local, keeps everything more, your carbon footprint lower. So I really do encourage everybody, if everybody, you know, takes a look at the Global Goals website, we put the link in the chat box. You can take care, you can, if you have any questions about any one of them, definitely post that in chat and we'll get back to you on that. So the things that we really wanted to get your opinion on is, you know, how, as we're choosing these goals in our business, one of the things that you talk about is how to educate your team and your customers about the goals that you're working on. So I know you have a team in India, right? That's where you do most of your manufacturing.
Yes.
So tell me about, I mean, I'm obviously, you know, how manufacturing works, and in your small manufacturing, you know, facility that you have is of course way different from the gigantic ones, but just give us an idea of how you talk to your team about these goals.
For micro organizations like us, it's easier because we imbibe the SDG goals from the beginning. We did not know the existence of these SDG goals till now, because now it's kind of getting to be in the forefront and a lot of people are getting to know about it. But intrinsically, you know, inside you have a certain value. You have like a blueprint that you have for your organization, whether it's financial or whether it's how you're going to probably, you know, whether it's a foundation and how you're going to help people. So unless and until you have people who are on the same viewpoint as you, it would be difficult to achieve what you want to achieve in the long run. Saying which, it's also very important to educate the customer, because like in India, you have a lot of customization that is done. So you have various clients who come by and it's very easy for them to look at a swatch and say, I do not like this color, you know, this is not the right pink I wanted. It has to be a shell pink. Not realizing that to get a small swatch of 5 by 5 inches out, you need to dye a minimum of, you know, like a meter or 2 meters of fabric. And that again entails like probably 200 liters of water for just like a meter of fabric. And how are you going to explain it? The customer doesn't have that idea, because say it's a wedding dress and she's like, no, this is not the color I wanted. So how would you get them to understand that the waste process that is being imbibed? Now, what I would normally do is I would take like a, you know, like I would take a thread and say that this is going to be the color, but then like, no, I want to see the actual fabric. So these are the things you need to really start getting the consumer to understand and realize that there's a lot more that goes into designing. That is one aspect. The second aspect is when you've created the product, which I keep telling my team, you know, keep the end in mind. Yes, you can do recycling. Yes, you can probably, you know, convert it into paper. Now, if that does not happen and the consumer cannot reach you, how is it that the consumer needs to, what can the consumer do with the product? How can they upcycle it to increase the life of it? Now, if you've given a dress and that could be, comes with an instruction where you can, you know, like cut it off and then that becomes like a skirt, or it could be converted into a bag or something which the consumer can say, great, you know, it's not going to end here because I know I'm not going to get fed up of it, but it's going to become something else, which is going to be of use. Or the packaging that could become like a pot for plants. So this is where if you start doing this within your team and also getting the consumers involved, you're definitely moving ahead with the implementation of the goals.
Right. Okay. And two, I mean, you know, the suppliers that you use are a big part of the process, right? So, I mean, and that's for every business, no matter, I mean, like, we've had such a toilet paper shortage all over the world, you know, so, you know, just a business that has to order toilet paper can make a difference by making a good choice in the vendor that they use. But I also know that that's a very complicated situation because the supply chain is so complicated. And I thought maybe Shirin might want to jump in on this as well, because from a legal standpoint, Shirin, there's companies that, you know, say that they're following the, you know, following some types of guidelines, but, you know, is there really anybody checking? Is there really any way you can ensure that if you are a company that is wanting to use, you know, products that are, you know, sustainably produced, do you have any, if they say they produce it, do you have any legal recourse if you find out that they're not?
That's a great question, Melissa. Absolutely. I think now as we are becoming more and more aware of what we're buying and where we're buying it from, demanding, you know, with these sustainable products, of course, demand higher price tags. So you're also paying for it. So in these circumstances, I would definitely insist that those provisions are in the contract. So whether it's a manufacturing contract, a distribution, whoever you're working with, your partners, insist on those being key terms in the contracts. And this way, if they're, you know, if they fail to follow through with any of those provisions, including, you know, guaranteeing that the products are sustainable and the methods are the methods that they had discussed and agreed to, then you've got some sort of action to hold them accountable to. The other issue is, as you mentioned, you know, who's enforcing this? And of course, in the global aspect, there are certain companies that are coming in, they're private companies that are enforcing this sort of, you know, sustainable practices. And in our webinar coming up next week on Friday, we're going to be talking about the benefits of being registered with one of these companies. And they are a watchdog. They will make sure that not only your corporation conforms to these standards, but also, you know, the customers are aware of these as well. And so are your investors. And then you've got a label that goes on there. So there is a body that is certifying your practices. So as a consumer or as, you know, a designer who's choosing a manufacturer, they can look to these certifications as a way of you know, relying on that information.
That's cool. Runa, when you have worked for several corporate companies, I know it's probably some time ago, but did any of them seem to make sustainability as part of the production process or care, or was that before everybody got awakened to the issue?
Sustainability, like I said, has been around for quite some time. It's just that it's been defined as the SDG goals now, but it was something that I think most organizations had for their own, you know, blueprint as to how they wanted to get ahead. When you talk about talking about what Shirin said, I completely agree. You need to have like certificates and compliances in place, which most organizations had. But the traceability is extremely difficult when it comes to fashion. Like I said, so you have the corporate, which is probably based in, say, you know, the UK or Hong Kong, and then they have the compliant factory in India. Now that compliant factory sublets the order to another factory, which has absolutely no papers, nobody knows anything about, has no fire escape, you know, but then it's unsaid. So how are you going to trace that? It's impossible. And if you go down further down into, like, you know, the fashion food chain, how do you know where your crop is grown from? I mean, do you have child labor involved? It's almost impossible for us fashion designers, because there's a certain aspect that you can probably take care of. And I think that's the reason you have the SDG goals, which some people like Shirin can probably embody and take forward and say, no, I'm going to completely own this and make sure that it's going to be clear, because it makes it easier for us to do it. Otherwise, it's a huge process. So traceability is definitely very difficult, but then you do have a lot of certifications like GOTS that kind of assure you, telling you that the fabric that you're getting is from an ethical source and it's done in the right way. So right now you don't have any blockchain technology that's taking care of fashion. You don't have a fashion, what do you call it, a fashion corporation that tells you where you can trace, you know, like you can have a barcode scan and tell you where, you know, where you got where the fabric is from and who manufactured it. It's extreme. It's not like the FDA that we have here now. So I think it's going to take time, but yeah, so we're working on it.
Dale, I'm curious, because I know you work with a lot of brands. I mean, it's all about providing, I guess, you know, samples to your models and shooting. Are you seeing any trends in the industry where maybe you guys are shooting for more sustainable products or more sustainable apparel?
Yes, we are definitely seeing trends that are moving in the positive direction towards sustainability in the industry. So every time I hear it, I'm really happy about that. And one of the things that some of the manufacturers and the brands are doing, they're producing less samples. We work with all size companies, and a lot of the major brands, even when they're making small strides towards sustainability, I think all should be given credit, because sometimes they get bashed in the media that they're not doing enough. And it's like any little bit anyone does in the right direction, I think should be, you know, praised. And hopefully more and more people, you know, when you start up a business, it seems that, I mean, everything's difficult and everything's a lot of work, but when you're just starting a business, you can probably build it into your business model and have the foundation. I think it's great that all these certifications are coming about now. So if you have like links to share, I would love to share that with our clients, because we do work with clients all around the world that are, you know, pretty much everyone who makes clothes we work with, and I would love to promote that and some kind of ethics code of sustainability or whatever they're calling it. I would love to be in on that and help you.
Yeah. Dale, do you ever have any issues with your models not wanting to work for a company because it's not ethical?
We have had a couple of instances. We try to do research and vet all clients. We haven't found anyone, you know, that we know is doing anything so bad or illegal or anything like that, but we have had clients that don't like companies' practice and they won't work with them. So hopefully that will resonate with the industry and they'll see that, you know, we need to do a better job. This earth is for all of us, and if we don't save it, there will be no jobs and businesses. So
Right.
it's in all of our interests to do better. So I do think that pretty much, I can't say every company, but so many companies now, they build sustainability into their practices. They're educating their employees, and I know many are doing a good job and doing the best they can, and hopefully we just go full steam ahead in the right direction.
That's super encouraging, because you're like on the front lines of that. You're seeing all the campaigns shot. And so that's really great to hear that you're seeing those trends in the industry. Kat, I know this is an issue near and dear to your heart. You're so involved in New York City with the sustainable fashion industry. I know, what would you like to add to this?
Well, this is a topic that it resonates with everyone. And I always say an educated consumer is your best customer. So I want to educate the consumer who is actually part of the distribution part of the supply chain, because how these goods are getting to them and how they need to demand different, like Dale was saying, the employees or, you know, the models need to know and be apprised of what it is. I wanted to ask Runa, does she have signature fabrics that she uses that make that selection process a little bit easier for the consumer? And also, what is the ratio between custom and pret-a-porter, the ready to wear, in your business model? Because obviously the custom is zero waste, but then when you get into inventory and pret-a-porter, then you have the problem with the end of the supply chain and the circular economy thing, putting it back in.
Okay, so when it comes to pret-a-porter, I basically work with program fabrics that were already done by organizations before, so I do not invest in creating new fabrics. So that makes it easier, and it's also given me the creative freedom, because very opposed to what I learned in an organization where like if you have a design and you have like fabric A, B, and C, and each one has to have the exact number of, or you have like a size set SKU, which is like 2 to 1, 2 small, 2 medium, 2 1.
Right.
But this gave me the freedom. If I have fabric A, which is red, B, which is green, and C, which is blue, the red would be like 10, the green would be like 3, and the blue would be probably just 1. And it really didn't matter, because I would be like, okay, since I have just 1, now which size moves really well? So it's going to be a medium. So I'm going to invest my money in making a medium. But I do not work on a business model that makes it like really stringent, because this is something which I realized during the pandemic. You need to be extremely mobile, and stock is something which is good, but can be really deadly and bad if you have too much of it. So how do you create that perfect balance, right? So that's how I work. When it comes to fabrics, I like to stick to natural because it's easier to work with. When it comes to synthetics, and if it's demanded by the consumer, it's something that I just buy off. So it's, you know, it's not going to be something which, it's not even something where I go to a store and buy, but they're like, you have these wholesale places, which is like the last resort when it's kind of done. And that's where you go and you purchase it. And that's where you give it a second life.
Yeah, right before it gets to the landfill.
Yeah.
Right. Dee, I know you've got a question, but I also have some things I want to ask you, but go ahead and ask Runa your question.
So Runa, my question is, when you create a collection or a dress or any of that, do you put a label on it, just kind of giving a description of how unique it is and the process that it went behind making that garment, so that people could see that they're not just purchasing a sustainable piece, but they're purchasing something unique that was specifically made and how it was made, so they could see the importance of, wow, it took so much, like this amount of water, this amount of plants, you know, just for them to see the importance of, wow, I'm purchasing an amazing, it's like an art piece. So
Mm-hmm.
Do you do that with your collection?
We still normally talk about it verbally, but we would not put it like on the tag, but it would be probably like on the website. But it is something that I think is really important, like we were discussing earlier, you know, because it can also tell the consumer how, this is something which I've been wanting to do for quite a long time, and which I will do when I go back to India, because right now I can't move. So you need to,
I know a company, a friend of mine, she designs little handbags that are sustainable. And some of the proceeds go to sex child trafficking to rescue girls. And her bags sell like hotcakes. Why? They're beautiful, but also she puts a tag on each bag, and she describes like who got rescued, how many girls got rescued through that bag, or and it's just sort of, you know, it's a story. You're telling a story, and you have an amazing story, Runa. So you need to share that story through your garments, and even if it's just a tag with the description of the process, it's as if somebody is purchasing an art piece, like it's an art collection, because there's so much that went into that. So it's something I wanted to throw at you.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. And I also feel like what Catherine said, even for the pret-a-porter pieces, we need to include how many times they could probably wash the garment, because people do not know how many times they need to wash the garment. So, you know, if you can, and these are like things you need to spoon feed the consumer, because we're so busy, right? I mean, we're in the fashion field, so we know what we're doing. But at the end of the day, you need to tell people, you need to help them out. So I completely agree with you, Dee, for sure.
Yeah. Runa, with everything going on with the coronavirus, there's been a lot of talk about this could actually, on one hand, you know, the worldwide, you know, downturn in production, you know, helped the environment. But then on the other hand, there's the concern because of just, you know, all the PPE and needing to constantly clean, that we're actually going to take some steps back. What's your view about how the coronavirus is affecting our ability to reach the SDG goals?
I think the coronavirus it's a very sad thing that did happen. I mean, hopefully it would never ever happen again. But in some ways, it got a lot of us to rethink a lot of values, like, and that's what we've been discussing. And every panel has been discussing that, because it's the truth. Everyone has paused. And when you do pause after, you know, while you're in a rat race, you start realizing what is important to you. And when you start realizing what is important to you, you start dedicating time towards it. When it comes to the discussion of medical waste that you just spoke about right now, that is something of great concern, because I think I did speak to you about this, Melissa. Remember about the masks and everything. But then, like you said, there's nothing that could be done now because it's a health emergency. So I think with every situation of this, there are going to be challenges that are going to be put forth, but it just makes us stronger to take the next one on. You know, it builds resilience. And like right now, there's a lot of movement going towards like the digital transformation of fashion. But then I'm sure in the future, there will be the digital carbon footprint that's going to be huge. So rather than, I mean, we're going to keep moving on, but then rather than rushing into things, keep the end in mind and realize what a digital footprint is going to do. And then work on creating a model around that. And then you have everything around it so that you've got it already contained.
Right. Well, so tell everybody how, tell us what you're doing tonight for World Oceans Day with CATS, the program that CATS helping to put on.
First of all, it's a beautiful program. So I encourage everyone to be watching this. I mean, I had a small preview yesterday. It's fantastic. It has to do with art and the oceans. And it basically takes you away from what you're living in right now and into this fantasy dreamland, but yet truthful world of art, because art helps you cope with a lot of things, but then you've still got to be practical. So what I'll be doing with Catherine is explaining the process behind designs with other very, very talented artists and, you know, like artists in the realm of fashion, in music, dancers, so underwater performers. So it's a great mix. It's a great mix. So I'm floored. I'm absolutely excited. I don't want to say too much because I want all of you to be on board. So yeah, thank you so much, Catherine, for taking me for this.
Yeah, and Catherine, see, are you unmuted now? Yeah, so how can people sign up to be on this tonight?
Yeah, UN 2020 has graciously given us their Zoom account, so you need to be invited so that we can keep the security in check. So it's on all of our websites now. You can go to my website, Regen Runway. It's also it's on visualconductor.co/making waves. So Making Waves is the name of the program, and it's on my website. It's on my Facebook page, Instagram page, and so we're going to keep the registration open all through the program. So it's 6 to 8:30. So even if you want to join after 6 o'clock, you still can, but you have to be invited. So that's why you have to register, because that's your email, and then the UN 2020 will send you the registration link, and then you will be able to log on. But I'm so excited. It's such an honor to deal with all these artists and environmentalists and explorers and designers, photographers, videographers who've dedicated their lives, and it is really impacting the oceans in a very, very positive way. And I hope 2030 brings us what the goals are. And it was a pleasure doing the sustainable goal number 17, because that's about partnerships. And that's what I think Fashion Mingle is all about too, is partnerships and collaborations, and the sum is greater than the whole. And I just woke up one day and said, let's call it Making Waves. Why would I think of that? It just channeled through me.
Kat, you're just good at thinking of stuff like that.
It just channeled through me, that's all. So I can't wait to start working on the Sustainable Development Goals Impact Awards too. So that's going to be making the sustainable goals more of a household term, because we're able to bring that out of the United Nations and make it for the private sector and the stakeholders. And I learned that word stakeholders because we are all stakeholders in this planet. We have a stake in the planet's health and bettering it. So it's just been a very eye-opening and rewarding situation. And thank you, Runa, for joining in with everyone and lending your talents and your incredible artistry to the project.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. And, you know, you bring up a really good point, Kat, about making this more of a, you know, getting sustainable development goals, making it more of a household thing. And I remember the transition where people were starting to become aware of or want organic food. And I just remember this young man that was a friend of my daughter. She was like, well, doesn't that mean it tastes bad? Which was so funny. Like, that was like 10 years ago. And, you know, now we're like, I want organic, you know? And so, you know, hopefully we can make this transition too. If we can make those sustainable development goals more understood and more top of mind for people, you know, then that will become a household thing, just like all of us wanting to eat organic food now. And Dee, since you're, you know, really into promoting brands and getting them all kinds of PR activities or PR access, I was wondering, like, could you suggest because everybody can adopt a goal that works for them. And I think that, and I definitely see this with Runa sometimes, is she doesn't really, you know, she doesn't celebrate what she's accomplishing. And I'm always like wagging my finger at her. And, you know, so what can we all do to, you know, if we adopt a sustainable development goal, how can we like appropriately make that a part of our company branding, and also you know, be able to celebrate what we've achieved through social media, so that we can educate our clients, our customers, and make it more a part of the discourse that happens every day on social media?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would recommend a couple things. One of the things is perhaps for tonight's event, just a question. Was a media looking out, and were health bloggers, wellness bloggers, people that are into sustainability, were they invited? They were? Okay.
Yes.
And did they RSVP?
And I actually took Lori's suggestion to send fabrics to everybody on the panel and to the
cool.
media. So these are samples of Rement, which is converted textiles. So that was
And
Lori's
those
suggestion.
samples behind the sample, is the invite behind the sample?
No, I told them where to log on.
Oh, okay.
I sent it to the panel.
I would have recommended that behind the sample.
Yeah.
Be the invite and blah blah blah. But anyway, next time. Another thing is, you could also, what I would recommend, Runa, is, you know, for you, and are you talking about the brand as far as Fashion Mingle, or her brand, Melissa?
I'm talking about just like the people that are watching today that are thinking about, you know, that are already involved in sustainable practices or want to incorporate sustainable practices. You know, how can they feel comfortable promoting that? And then also maybe even getting some PR, because you're always booking people on morning shows and things like that. And I think it's a thing that would be very attractive to morning shows to cover.
Yeah, I think so too, especially now more than ever. And you're doing something so unique. You know, Making Waves is such a unique name. And Catherine, I hope you're talking to Shirin about that. But I think that's a very unique name, a unique concept. And we could definitely pitch to morning shows. You could also reach out to a lot of AM producers for morning shows on LinkedIn, and send them a message, maybe invite them, say, we'd love for you to join us. Please come. I also think, Runa, I think the whole process, because I think when you mentioned about that, that piece where the green, the process that it took to get that green dye, a lot of people don't know that. I think a lot of people think, oh, she probably just soaked it in water and it came out. I think those little teeny webinars,
she's hand pressing it
behind the scenes and telling little stories are what leads you to get that press, to get the name out there, to get you know, the whole concept of sustainability out there. And I think
move the needle.
Yeah, like little story clips. It's kind of like you're telling a story, like, what did it take to do this piece? Like CNN is really good at that. They're always like behind the scenes, behind the scenes in the war, behind the scenes, and you know, they always have stories. And I think the storytelling is very key, because you have the messaging is what's going to engage people in your movement, right? It's like you're having a movement.
Right.
I also think live stream is very important, because
we're live streaming
30-second, no, but I mean like live stream as far as like getting a 30-second video telling a story about what you're doing and putting it on all these platforms that are available. And I could send you info on how to do that, but I think that's key, because people are streaming now. So it could come up on Hulu, it could come on Netflix, it could come on, you know, when people have the little 30-second commercial. That is a way, and you know, it's not expensive to do it. So, you know, that's something to think about. I could throw a lot of things at you, but I think those are key things that I would give out.
I think it's such a great point, because, you know, you know, everybody is so focused on, you know, getting their content digitally, which makes it much cheaper to advertise than the old traditional ways. And a lot of companies don't understand, especially smaller companies don't understand just how cheap it actually is. But, you know, we have to really take this up a notch. You know, we can't keep what we're doing within sustainability just within this little, you know, tribe of people who care. You know, it's got to get out there to the masses, and advertising through digital streaming services, you know, like where you watch your movies, and then, you know, also, of course, you know, social media has so many streaming options. So that's something I hope that we can take away from today, is that we're really thinking about how we can be a louder voice to help meet these goals. I mean, the original intention in 2015 was that we would have met the goals by 2030. We're 10 years away. You know, one of the first goals was ending poverty. You know, that's a very lofty goal. But I really do hope we can.
And awareness, if anybody's interested in awareness, there's a lot of great films. One of them is True Cost. I'm sure, Runa, you would agree that that's a very powerful, and it's once you see a movie like that, you can't unsee it. And it's really motivating. And people have changed their entire businesses just based on that. And I show that in my classes.
Can you send me the link? So when we do the blog article on this video or on this webinar, we'll include that. I would love to.
Can I say one more thing, Melissa, because I know we're up for time. Also, what I was thinking is, you know, there's a lot of like Trader Joe's or Whole Foods that are into sustainability. And maybe they would be behind helping or kind of giving some kind of sponsorship on the importance of it, because I know that they have those kind of causes, or some kind of brand that is into sustainability would be good. If you
look for partnerships with brands that already have that as part of their goal. That's
their mission.
Suggestion. And then next week, Shirin, everybody who's on this today is definitely going to want to catch Shirin's mastermind next Friday, because she's going to be bringing on 2 brands that have created a B Corp. And, you know, there's some real interesting advantages to becoming a B Corp. And, you know, and it's not like becoming a corporation, an LLC. Why don't you just we've got to end this, but Shirin, could you just give us a real quick description of what a B Corp is, and why you might want to have your company registered as a B Corp?
So a B Corp is essentially, it's a private organization that is certifies your company. There's a rigorous standard. There's an assessment that takes place. This is definitely an investment in your brand, in your company, and also in the world that you're living in. So it's not, you know, this is going to take time, but basically what's going to happen is that once you get this, once you get the certification, go through the process, you're now becoming part of this social movement that supports, you know, not just for profits, but, you know, sustainability practices, humanitarian practices, you know, nonprofit goals that you may have, and missions, and sharing that mission, as Runa stated. This is exactly what a B Corporation would show the world, that you are part of this movement and you're not hiding your message anymore. This is, you know, this is what needs to happen in the world, and little by little we can, you know, we can all support each other in that. So yeah, I'm excited to share that, and we'll have some brands that are going to go through that process and explain to you exactly what it's like to be part of that.
Yeah.
Shirin, does B stand for benefit? Is that what it is? Benefit Corporation?
Yes.
Corporation, yes. Yeah, and the other thing too, that if you're a company that is looking for an investor, I know there's some investor advantages to being registered as a B Corp. There are investor funds that like to support those companies that are registered. So I'm looking forward to that conversation a lot. Well, Runa, thank you so much for your time today, all of your inspiration and advice, and we just really love having you on.